Now, being a certified epic gamer, you might think I don't know a thing or two about sports or outside, but I will have you know that I played a fair bit of sports back in my day. In fact, playing tennis poorly is a fundamental part of my childhood. And you know who else is a fundamental part of my childhood? Waluigi. So, I've got a funny idea. Why don't we talk about the development of Mario Tennis? Because not only is it the first Mario Tennis game ever made, but it is also the only reason Waluigi exists today. So on this episode of Beta64, we are going to take a close look at the birth of Waluigi, the death of his scrap sidekick Warupeach, and the development of Mario Tennis.
But first, a word from our sponsor.
Do you feel like you've been missing out on Nintendo's Japan exclusive items for far too long? Well, I'm here to tell you that with our sponsor Buy, you will miss out no longer, because when you use Buy, you can buy anything from Japan. From recently released items exclusive to Nintendo's Tokyo store to discontinued Nintendo merch from years past, Buy is the place to look. Remember all those awesome Club Nintendo items that you never had the chance to get? Well, now is your chance. Buy has pins, figures, and while you're there, don't forget to grab the Year of Luigi soundtrack CD. And it's not just CDs, they've also got vinyl records too. Remember that Animal Crossing LP? I sure didn't. I missed my chance to get one. But hope is not lost. I found it on Buy, less than the inflated eBay prices, even when taking into account shipping and handling fees, which you can estimate on the Buy website before making any purchase. If you're interested in bringing home a Japan exclusive item, scan this QR code or click the link in the description and you'll get 10% off your first Buy purchase. New items are being added all the time, so you gotta click that link and check out Buy for yourself. Now, on to the video.
Before we start taking a look at Mario Tennis, we first need to talk about Camelot. In case you didn't know, a majority of Mario sports games were made by one single company called Camelot. If you don't count Golden Sun or any of the mobile apps they made, for the past 25 years, Camelot has only released video games based on tennis and golf for Nintendo consoles. But that wasn't what the company was originally intended to be known for. Camelot was founded in 1994 by Shugo Takahashi, with the focus of the company being to make games for the Sony PlayStation. Their early years were mostly focused on RPGs like Beyond the Beyond, but there was one game released in 1997 that wasn't an RPG. Camelot made a game called Everybody's Golf for the PS1. And that's a pretty big series that was made for roughly 20 years. Not by Camelot, they only made the first game in the series, but it did solidify that the company could make a pretty dang good golf game. This was all before Camelot started working with Nintendo. So how did that end up happening? Well, Nintendo had recruited Camelot to create a role-playing game for the Nintendo 64. But Camelot wanted to make a simple game first, to get used to the Nintendo 64 hardware. And what could be simpler than a nice little game of golf? So they started working on developing a prototype of it. At the same time, just by pure coincidence, Nintendo was also working on their very own golf game for the N64, just called Golf. One day, Camelot showed off their prototype to Nintendo, and they were so impressed that Nintendo was just like, yeah, forget our game, just make yours. So Golf was canceled, and Nintendo had Camelot take over. The final game ended up becoming Mario Golf, which released in 1999 to universal acclaim. So as you'd expect, Nintendo asked Camelot to make another Mario sports title, and that one just so happened to end up being Mario Tennis.
Development of Mario Tennis began shortly after the completion of Mario Golf in 1999. So if you do the math, that means 2000 minus 1999 equals 1? They finished the entirety of Mario Tennis in one single year? How?
Hiroyuki Takahashi, president of Camelot and brother of Shugo Takahashi, attributed the quick development time to great teamwork and Camelot's philosophy of trying to build new things on top of what they already knew how to do. They don't try to take massive leaps when making their games. Their titles are treated more like stepping stones to new ideas. But that's not the only reason why development was so quick. It was also an intentional choice, because Camelot knew Nintendo would be releasing the Dolphin Project soon, which you probably know better under its final name, the GameCube. As I said before, Camelot was originally working on building the basics of an RPG for the N64 before switching to making Mario Golf. Well, after Mario Golf was released, they were gonna go back to working on that RPG. But the GameCube was coming, and they wanted to make a simpler game for the Nintendo 64 that could be made quickly, before the brand new console came out and suddenly whatever they were making was completely obsolete. So they went ahead and just reorganized their entire software development schedule to focus on getting Mario Tennis done before the GameCube. Well, I guess technically it wasn't called Mario Tennis at the beginning because they weren't 100% certain that they would be allowed to use Mario characters in the game. They wanted to use Mario characters, they were previously allowed to use Mario characters in Mario Golf, but instead of just assuming they'd get to use them, they wanted to get explicit permission from Nintendo first. That being said, the prototype they showed Nintendo already had Mario characters being used and playable, so I guess they were pretty confident that they were going to be able to get the go-ahead. When they showed their prototype to Miyamoto, he liked the game a lot, and the team was so happy to hear that. With the ability to add Mario characters to the game set in stone, they got to work picking out their roster. And that, my friends, is where the beautiful, majestic Waluigi was born. Yeah, in case you weren't aware, Mario Tennis marked the debut of Waluigi. Camelot created him specifically for Mario Tennis on the Nintendo 64. But where did this idea for Waluigi come from? How was he conceived? And who are the parents? Well, we'll get to all of that just in a bit. First things first, we need to start at the very beginning, back when the team was first picking their playable characters for Mario Tennis. The first characters picked for the game were Mario, Luigi, Peach, Wario, and Bowser. They were the easy choices. And beyond that, it was a real struggle finding characters that would fit into the game. Tennis is a game about competition. It's visceral. They wanted someone in the roster to be the heel, someone you'd love to hate and wanted to compete against to come out on top. They searched through all the past Mario games for characters to fill that role, but came up short. I mean, there was Wario, but tennis has doubles, 2 versus 2. So Mario and Luigi versus Wario and who? Shugo Takahashi was the one who initially suggested making a new character, but they didn't want to step on anyone's toes. So Camelot asked Nintendo, hey, are you guys able to make us, a new character, someone to act as Wario's teammate? But Nintendo was busy at the time, probably busy with the upcoming GameCube. Well, can we take a shot at it? Asked Camelot. And Nintendo was just like, yeah, sure, go for it. Well, okay then. That's when the development team began discussing what this new character would be like. Specifically, Fumihide Aoki and Shugo were the ones who got to work creating Waluigi. And fun fact, this new character was named Waluigi before they even began designing what he would look like. And speaking of his looks, Shugo wanted there to be a stark contrast between Wario and Waluigi. Aoki thought about this and suggested they looked like the Doronbo gang from Yatterman. Just to be clear, it wasn't intended to be a copy and paste imitation, it's just that specific dynamic that they liked, with one character being tall and thin, and the other being short and thick. With the look settled, what would be Waluigi's outfit? Well, originally, Waluigi was going to wear the same hat as Wario with a W smack dab in the middle, but since it would be the same, they thought, maybe we should be a bit more original. They tried having Waluigi's hat have both a W and an L, stacked on top of each other, but we could do better. It was thanks to Yoichi Kotabe that they were able to settle on the now classic upside-down L. Yoichi worked at Nintendo at the time and is known for being the one who refined Miyamoto's early sketches of Mario into the style that we know and love today. He let Aoki and Shugo in on a little secret. Wario's W isn't just because his name is Wario, it's also an upside-down M for Mario. Ooh, a pattern! And that's why they decided to go for an upside-down L, because much like Wario being Mario's counterpart, Waluigi was Luigi's counterpart. Now, aside from the hat, everything else was decided pretty quickly and easily. Purple was just a good color balance with the other characters, and the mustache looks that way because it's an L to match the L on the hat. With the character design all said and done, you'd think there would be a sigh of relief from the team. They had their new character ready to walk onto the court, but instead they were concerned. How would Nintendo feel about Waluigi? Would they hate it? If they do hate it, what do we do? Alright, let's just see what Miyamoto thinks. And you know what? Miyamoto freaking loved it. In fact, Nintendo loved Waluigi so much that when Kotabe went to clean up their sketches and finalize the character, he kept Waluigi almost exactly as they envisioned him. And the rest is history.
Now, Waluigi isn't the only unexpected character that was added. Mario Tennis included Princess Daisy, which was a big deal since the last game that she was in was back in the early 90s. In fact, Daisy only made 2 appearances between her introduction in Super Mario Land and being added to Mario Tennis. She showed up in NES Open Tournament Golf as Luigi's caddy, and she also appeared in Super Mario Bros. Print World for MS-DOS. But that game doesn't even have her in her correct colors. She just looks like a slightly different Princess Peach. And after those 2 brief appearances, we didn't see Princess Daisy for almost a decade, until Mario Tennis finally brought her back into the limelight with her first ever playable appearance in a video game. Since then, she's been in at least one video game every single year for the past 25 years, all because Camelot added her to Mario Tennis. Thank you, Camelot.
Nowadays, Daisy is a well-known character, but back then, she was a pretty obscure pick. Some of the development team didn't even know that Daisy was a princess, only finding it out when Nintendo mentioned it to them. In fact, it was Nintendo that made Daisy's appearance in this game happen at all. Once again, doubles mode was proving to be an issue for Camelot. Mario had Peach, but Luigi didn't have a partner. When Camelot asked Nintendo who to pick, they just said, yeah, Daisy would be a good match, so they went for it. They also asked Nintendo if Wario and Waluigi should also have female partners too, maybe even girlfriends. But Miyamoto was like, nah, people who would date Waluigi and Wario would be weird people. His words, not mine. But that wasn't the only potential partners that got scrapped. Shugo was also thinking it would be fun to make partners for Bowser and Boo. But to be fair, that was just him making little silly ships in his head. It was never actually planned to be in the game. Speaking of Boo, Mario Tennis was also their first playable appearance in a Mario game. Same goes for Paratroopa, Shy Guy, and Birdo. Camelot just needed a ton of characters for Mario Tennis, way more than Mario Golf. And while there are many characters in the Mario universe, they could only pick ones that were suitable for a human sport. Camelot had considered a Goomba, Bullet Bill, or maybe even a Womp for playable characters, but these ideas were all thrown out because they weren't human-shaped enough. Goombas didn't have hands, and the Womp was just rock solid, couldn't really bend to reach for the ball. That's the main reason why Daisy was such a quick pick after Nintendo suggested her. She's human, so she was in. It's surprisingly hard to find human characters in the Mario universe back then. Nowadays you got Rosalina and stuff like that, but back then they had to really scrape the bottom of the barrel to find anyone close. But in the end, they were able to find enough characters. And it wasn't entirely based on how human they looked. They also wanted to pick characters for potential gameplay elements. For instance, when they picked Boo, they realized that since Boo's hover, they should make it where Bowser's stage tilting wouldn't affect them. But that's also a bit overpowered, so they had to add in a second flying character in order to kind of balance it out. Doing that was pretty simple though. They just replaced the original idea of having a Koopa Troopa as a playable character with a Paratroopa. Having quirky characters doing quirky things like that was part of the design philosophy of Mario Tennis. They wanted to create something new. That was actually the mantra used for the team throughout development. They wanted to create a new genre of sports games, something that broke from the standard vanilla tennis games at the time. Having specific characters with quirky perks and disadvantages was just one way they kept the game nice and spicy. We've spent a good chunk of this video talking about characters in Mario Tennis, but there is one more person that I want to talk about. Another Wah character.
Did you ever hear the tragedy of Walupeach?
After Aoki and Shugo had finished creating Waluigi, they had another idea they wanted to make happen for Mario Tennis. Warupeach, an evil counterpart to Peach. The thing was, this evil Peach character wasn't really necessary, at least like Waluigi was. They had already figured out everyone's doubles, Mario and Luigi versus Wario and Waluigi, Mario and Peach versus Luigi and Daisy. So while the name Walupeach was written down during the development of Mario Tennis for the Nintendo 64, they didn't actually pursue the idea with a visual design until Mario Power Tennis on the GameCube. Now, I know this video isn't about Mario Power Tennis, but the story of Walupeach is just too interesting not to include. And technically, it all started with the original Mario Tennis, so let's freaking go. Let's go down this rabbit hole. Basically, while creating the sequel to Mario Tennis, they wanted to give Walupeach a shot. just because it sounded fun. Not to mention they were kind of on a high from getting Waluigi approved in the first game. I mean, if Nintendo approved Waluigi, maybe, just maybe, they could get another character approved for the next game. So Miyamoto, what do you think of Walupeach? I'm good. Miyamoto just was not into the idea. He figured that she would just resemble Durango from the Durango gang way too much. Waluigi was already getting a little close, so he denied the idea outright. The design team took careful consideration to make sure Walupeach did not look that much like Durango, but since the idea was already denied outright, even before seeing the art, she was scrapped, never to be seen ever again. That is until 2023, when Aoki posted some of the concept art they made of Walupeach back in the day, and here she is. She's presented as a young character that would consider Waluigi and Wario her henchmen. Cute, right? But she's also scary. She defied any expectations put on her, and her favorite food was cherry tomatoes. That defying expectation mindset was always on Aoki's mind while drawing the concept art. And it wasn't just sketches, she even got a full 3D model. She's shown in purple in this, but had Walupeach been approved, the outfit would have likely been recolored. But obviously that approval did not happen. It wasn't the end of the world though, since they didn't really have any character to pair with her for doubles anyway, so they weren't too disappointed, but still, she's a cool character. Sad to see her go.
Alright, let's get out of 2004 and get to talking about the year 2000, Y2K baby! Now that we didn't have to worry about all the computers exploding, it was time to celebrate with E3 2000. Mario Tennis was shown off there alongside an interesting catalog of games at Nintendo's booth. See, this was at the very end of the Nintendo 64's life cycle. Everyone already knew about the Dolphin, or otherwise known as the GameCube, when it was announced near E3 1999. But Nintendo was waiting for an event in August to actually show off the new console alongside the Game Boy Advance. You might remember that August event under the name Space World 2000. Now, I don't need to talk about Space World in this video, so if you're interested in learning more about this monumental event, you gotta check out my video on the development of Luigi's Mansion. It's probably one of the best videos I've ever made, so check that out. I'll put a link to it on the end card of this video.
So what was that interesting catalog of games at Nintendo's booth? Well, they had Paper Mario, Banjo-Tooie, Majora's Mask, Perfect Dark, and Conker's Bad Fur Day, which had a real open bar on the show floor. It wasn't a bit, there was real, actual beer, baby. There was also Dinosaur Planet, which ended up being remade as Star Fox Adventures for the GameCube. Eternal Darkness for the Nintendo 64, which ended up getting released for the GameCube instead. And Resident Evil 0, which was also pushed back and released on the GameCube instead. So yeah, a lot of the games they showed off for the Nintendo 64 there didn't actually release on the platform, but there was still the star of the show, Mario Tennis. E3 2000 took place from May 11th to May 13th, meaning that this build of the game was shown only a couple months before the game's actual release in Japan. And the build that they showed off at E3 was the Japanese version of the game too. So as you'd expect, there aren't really that many changes to the game itself. In fact, if I check my notes, I found 0. But there's still something that I'd like to show you. Since the English release of the game was still a bit away, there are some differences to the game's English logo. Compared to the final logo, it actually looks like they simplified it, adding a nice green border so it pops out more on a lighter background. You can see what I mean when you look at it on the sky background. This is from footage from Nintendo Mania. And not gonna lie, this background that they used looks almost official, like this was the original title screen for the game, but I don't have any proof of that. This could just be an image made specifically for the press that features Waluigi instead of Luigi to show off their new character, but even if it wasn't planned for the game, I just think it looks very, very nice.
Now we've reached the unused portion of this video. Oh, I don't mean unused stuff from this video. The funny bloopers and scrap sections, those are on Patreon. No, I mean we're at the part of the video where we talk about what's unused in the final version of Mario Tennis. Here's the thing. There's only one unused thing in Mario Tennis, but it's pretty freaking awesome. It's a debug menu, and it's only able to be activated with a Game Shark code, but luckily, I've already gone through that trouble just for you. So let's dive on in and see what the developers use to debug Mario Tennis.
Let me walk you through some of the different features we got here. First, you can view player models like a nice T-posing DK. You can rotate it, move it around, start-stop animations, view them frame by frame, and even change the color of the background. And all of that you can also do with objects in the game as well. A nice cool feature of this debug menu is you can also jump right to the congratulations screen, so you can show it off to all your friends without having to actually earn it. Then there's the tennis menu, the big feature of this. It allows you to set up whatever game that your heart desires. But if you need a pre-made match, there's one specific matchup that has an entire button on the controller dedicated to it. Simply press down on the D-pad to quickly go to a predetermined match that was likely set up by the devs to test something specific. What that is, I don't know. It's a quarterfinals match in the Mushroom Cup featuring 2 green Yoshis, both controlled by the first player's controller. And there's an interesting side effect to doing this match through the debug menu. If you head to the tournament bracket, it is completely empty with not a single character appearing on it. Something not possible in the final game.
So that's Mario Tennis, a beautiful beginning for Waluigi and Daisy, both of whom have appeared in more games than I can count since their playable character debut in 2000. Now, I don't want to end this video yet because there's something special that I want to show you. It's not unused. It's something I just didn't know about until I visited the debug menu. If you press the left C button while you're in that menu, you're taken to the no controller screen, which normally appears when booting up the game without a controller plugged in. Isn't it beautiful? You can tell the team at Camelot were incredibly proud of their Waluigi. They have every reason to be. Waluigi was, is, and will always be an icon. Thank you, Camelot.
But what if I told you that there's still more to see? Right now on the Beta64 Patreon, there is a behind-the-scenes look at this episode that you just finished watching. Click the link in the blue box right on your screen there, and you can check out weekly exclusive uploads, plus get your name on future Beta64 episodes too. Thank you!